Net profits, though, are down 60%, and it's all largely due to the challenging conditions presented by a drought. Was this the only variable?
Let me clarify the results. Actually, in fact, the profits have improved, and I want to focus on the operating profits of the company, okay? Because yes, we can say that profits attributable to members have gone down, but that includes the gains arising from the valuation of biological assets. So I want to be very clear and clarify the two components of that profit. The first component of the profit is the operating profit. The company has been in operation for a year, and its operational profits have increased by approximately 10%, from approximately 350 million in the previous year to approximately 388 million in the current year. Now, this increase has mainly been attributable, to an increase in the prices of tea and coffee. We had increases in the prices of tea and coffee. We had favorable prices. The world market absorbed our tea and coffee very well. And the thing is, you mentioned the drought. Yes, there was a drought, but the increases in prices of tea and coffee more than compensated for the effects of the drought, which was a drop in production. But apart from the prices increasing, we also had a more favorable exchange rate. Our average exchange rate improved during the year, and we therefore realized more Kenya shillings for the sales that we made. Yeah. Now, the drought did have an impact on our production levels, but it was not sufficient enough to wipe out the gains made from the price increases and from the exchange rate, where the Kenya shilling weakened against the US dollar. Now, that made our operating profit increase. But the difference comes in, and I need to clarify this very clearly. In the last year, in the previous year, we had a change in the fair value of our biological assets, and biological assets are basically the coffee trees and the tea bushes. These are valued on an annual basis because the international accounting standards require this. Yeah. When they were valued last year, there was an increase in that fair value of biological assets of approximately in excess of 600 million shillings. This year, when they were valued, there was an increase in their value of about 4 million shillings. Now, you see the difference between 600 million and 4 million is what is looking like our performance has not been good.
Right. Okay.
But in actual fact,
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Let's talk about profitability, which is attributed to a favorable exchange rate and rising prices. Yes. Do you expect that to continue? Do you expect that to continue into the year ahead?
Yeah, looking at the year ahead, we look at our commodities. Our two main commodities are tea and coffee. What is likely to happen to the prices of tea and coffee? Are the prices likely to go up, to maintain, or to go down? We have a sense that there is indeed an international financial crisis in Europe, okay? There's a bit of turmoil in the US, but we have realized that tea and coffee are income inelastic products. And this is based on our experience in the 2008-2009 financial crisis in the West. So we do not expect the demand for our products to fall based on our past experience. Okay, that's the first thing. Second, we have noted that the consumption of tea has been increasing. And in fact, India is increasingly becoming a net importer of tea. China is increasingly demanding tea. And with those two huge populations, we are finding that the demand for tea is likely to keep on rising. On the other hand, coffee. Kenyan coffee is highly demanded in the world. The problem that has been there is that it has been of a limited quantity. But the demand has been there so that it can be used to blend with other coffees to improve the quality of the blends that are available worldwide. Given the limited quantities that we have, we expect the prices to remain quite buoyant in the next year.
Okay, let's
go.
So
based on those two observations, we expect the prices to be maintained and probably the results to be fairly reasonable next year.
All right, let's go to this thorny issue of the lower valuations for your biological assets, because as our analyst just said, purely because of that, the earnings per share component has declined significantly. So when you explain this to your shareholders, how do you explain it in terms of them looking at the bigger picture?
Yeah, well, we'll have to explain that the valuation of biological assets is a requirement of international accounting standards, okay? And from year to year, it may change. It is likely to change based on the parameters that are used to value those assets. Now, what has happened is that it cannot keep on going up all the time. At some point, it also comes down. And that is when it has to be passed through the profit and loss account. So, in fact, it is not a bad thing for that valuation to show a slight, after an year in which there's been a big increase, there is nothing wrong with it showing a slightly higher increase, because it means in the future, the reversals are also not going to affect the profit and loss account negatively. but it is an international accounting standard requirement which we have to work with. The main figure that they need to work with is the operating profit. And again, I want to add, if you look at our operating profit, our cash flows, they have been improving. The dividend we have declared this year is 1 shilling, okay? Which means that translates to approximately 1 shilling per share, which is about 228 million shillings. Based on an operating profit of 380 million approximately, it means we've distributed almost 60% of our operating profit.
Let's talk about...
And we cannot distribute valuations, increase in valuation of biological assets. That's not distributable.
Let's
so the shareholders will understand.
Let's talk about value for investors and dividends, because as you said, you have paid out one in July, and many companies across the spectrum are focusing on cash preservation this time round. And there is a sense that many companies shouldn't be paying dividends to try to preserve cash, to try to keep the balance sheet afloat. You've also had to deal with refinancing for some of your debts in order to ensure that your balance sheet looks good. So the strategy for cash preservation going into the next year?
Yes, we actually want to preserve some cash, true, and that's why we didn't declare more dividends than the 1 shilling per share. And as we go forward, you see, very fortunately, as we said, we are fairly optimistic about the ability of our company to generate cash into the future. Don't forget, we're in the export market, which with a commodity that, as I said, is income inelastic. So we expect the results to be fair enough for next year. And as we move, and we've already started the year, we expect to generate cash and to be able to repay any outstanding debts that we have. We've actually repaid off most of our debt, the loan notes, and we've got a small amount which is still left. But we feel after there was a time, actually, in the last 6 years, we would say there was a period of 3 years when we were not able to declare dividends. And we also have a need also to give our shareholders something back for the investment and the confidence they've had with us. So we have really been balancing the need to keep our shareholders having some dividends and also to preserve some cash. And that's why we gave out the dividends at the level that we gave out. We had the money. If you look at our cash flows, they've not been too bad.
Okay, innovations in the year ahead, because there is a sense that you spoke about coffee and the fact that you've got limited production. Some people would say, you know what, forget about it. You can't compete with the Colombias and the rest of it. Rather, you know, use that land for other measures, for instance. Go into real estate investments, broaden your portfolio. Is that something that you're considering? Yeah.
In relation to coffee, indeed, it is true that we have some of our coffee estates in very prime areas on the outskirts of Nairobi. This is the Kiambu area, which is on the outskirts of Nairobi in the central province. We have actually decided to continue with coffee for the time being because coffee is in high demand. But we have introduced an innovation where we have done soil analysis in our soils in those farms to find out what are the nutrient levels that we have there. And in fact, incidentally, this is some technology we're using from South Africa to assess what are the nutrient levels in the soils and to try and meet the optimal nutrient needs for coffee plants and the coffee fruit that we are trying to grow. And we hope with this new innovation, we're going to be able to increase our yields. So really, this is the one innovation which I can mention that we have mentioned it recently in one of our public farmers' days. And this is one of the areas that we're looking at improving. Because we know with technology we can do better,